Let's do this. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching the show on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. So many ways to listen. There's really no excuse not to. It's a beautiful Friday. It was supposed to rain all week. It hasn't at all, which has been, or it has very little if it has rained. And it's just been so nice. The weekend is on the horizon. We've got so much to cover today. Obviously, the Final Four, those games happen tomorrow night. We'll talk more Arizona and Michigan, UConn versus Illinois. The great Dan Dakich, he'll be on at 12:30 to help me talk about those games. Zack Gray, who's a name that you're going to get pretty familiar with here on the show. He's going to join me at 1:30. Best sports gambler I know. Does a great job, especially in college sports, especially with his college basketball and his college football picks. So we're going to have him on at 1:30 to tell you how to bet the Final Four. Eric Ebron, former Colts tight end, went on a podcast I've never heard of, talked about Chris Ballard and Andrew Luck. Pretty interesting stuff. And then, we got a couple other smaller things that we'll hit on today as well. So nice little layout for the show. And last night, I was sitting in front of my TV watching the NIT. And I was thinking about Arizona and Michigan and just kind of the Final Four as a whole. And I was trying to think through, like what are the things that these teams absolutely have to do to have a chance to win. And I was kind of thinking about that, and my mind wandered, as it does, back to when I was a kid. And I was thinking about, my mom, who's awesome, by the way. And my mom was a mostly stay-at-home mom. There was one summer, though, she had to have in a 9 to 5. Thankfully, my siblings and I were old enough to stay home alone, and my mom would leave us a chore list to do every single day. Every day when she left, she just knew that if she didn't keep us busy, then we were going to do something dumb. And we all knew, me and my 3 siblings, we all knew if that list didn't get done, we were cooked. It was going to be a rough time whenever my mom got home. And, we knew that when she came home, if the things were done, everything would go perfectly. She would make dinner. It'd be good. No one would get yelled at. It was awesome, right? And I think that for every team in the Final Four, there are 2 things that they have to do to have a chance to advance to the national title game. Okay, and if they don't do these 2 things, then their season will very likely be over tomorrow night. So they're basic things. It's nothing crazy. So for Arizona and Michigan, I think the 2 most important things for Arizona to have a chance to beat Michigan. Michigan's favored in this game, by the way, which is bizarre given the fact that everybody that I hear talk about the game, everyone seems to really like Arizona to win it. And I think that in order for Arizona to do that, they have to draw fouls. And more importantly, they need to play in transition. I think a slower game favors Michigan because of how good Michigan's half-court offense is. And because if the game slows down and Arizona's going to the rim, they got to finish over the 7'3" Mara, which I don't think that they want to do that. I think they'd rather get uncontested layups in transition where this very athletic Arizona team can kind of let their athleticism show out a little bit more. Okay. Here's the other thing too that I think is important to remember. Great guards are great in transition. Like, for example, Tyrese Halliburton, Braden Smith, the guards here in Indiana. Like, whenever Braden Smith led the break for Purdue, they scored, I would bet, 90% of the time. Whenever Tyrese Halliburton leads the break for, the Pacers, whenever he comes back, they're probably going to score 90% of the time. Great guards are great in transition, and that is what Arizona has. So I think in order to negate some of the size of Michigan and to play to the strength of Arizona, which feeds into that athleticism and their ability to finish at the rim, they need to get out in transition and get some easy buckets because, again, it's just easier to score when there's not a 7'3" guy standing at the rim. Okay. Drawing fouls is something that's going to be so important for them in this game as well. Arizona, they don't take many threes. With that being said, they can make threes. They've got three guys who shoot 40% or better from three on the year. They just don't take very many. They beat teams at the rim and at the foul line. And there's an idea that you have to be able to make threes in order to win games and to beat good teams. And that's obviously not entirely true because Arizona has trounced everybody despite not taking and making a ton of threes. And they do that. They're able to overcome the lack of three-pointers made by taking more foul shots, by getting to the foul line. And this is a team that does a really good job of knocking down their free throws. The foul thing becomes even more important when you factor in that the center for Michigan, Mara, 7'3" specimen, is top 5 in college basketball this year in terms of blocks per game. And when you go back and you look at that Big Ten championship game where Purdue beat Michigan, what happened to Mara? He got into foul trouble. And to Mara's credit, he has done an excellent job so far through the tournament of avoiding fouls, of staying out of foul trouble. And I'm telling you right now, if Arizona, draws 2 fouls on Mara early, and Michigan has to play like 12 straight minutes, I don't think Dusty May would keep him out that long. But, they have to go for a prolonged period without Mara's shot blocking on the floor. I think you will see Arizona pull away from Michigan a bit. Mara's presence at the rim is going to be huge in this game. Okay? And the Wolverines, they have to have Mara on the floor to deter the paint points that Arizona so desperately wants to get. Okay? I think whenever you watch the Spurs play, I don't think it's going to be quite this drastic, but whenever you watch the Spurs play, whenever Wemby goes to the bench, the opposing team is like, hallelujah, we can finally get layups. Arizona is going to go to the rim no matter what, no matter who's in the game, but I think you will see a great difference in terms of their finishing ability when Mara is on the bench. So Arizona, they need to get out and run. They need to draw fouls. And I think they're going to do those things because that is what their success has been built off of all year long. And it's why they continue to win. They have such a low level of variability whenever they play. And what I mean by that is whenever you watch Alabama could score 100 or they could score 70 because three-point shooting fluctuates from game to game. When your offense is built by getting to the rim and making foul shots, those are things that don't really fluctuate very often. And that's why the production for Arizona has been so steady throughout this run. It's why I think that they're going to win the national title this year because you just know what you're getting from them every single night. And in order for Michigan to disrupt that, in order for Michigan to beat Arizona, Michigan has to do 2 things. They have to make threes, and they have to defensive rebound. That is how you beat Arizona. You make threes, and you keep them off the offensive glass. Michigan can do both of those things. They've done both of those things at a very high level this year. It's why they're favored by 1.5 points in this game, despite, again, everyone seeming to pick Arizona. And the more that I hear people pick Arizona, the more I want to pick Michigan. Both Arizona and Michigan shoot 36% from 3 on the year. It's a pretty good team percentage. The difference is Michigan has attempted over 300 more threes on the year. This is an elite shooting team. It's why they have one of the best half-court offenses in the country. They have to make threes to beat Arizona. Arizona doesn't have to make threes to win, but Michigan does. And Michigan does an excellent job of generating these open looks. They just have to knock them down in this game. More important than that, though, and the thing that I think is going to ultimately decide this game is keeping Arizona off the offensive glass. I think there's a real possibility that Illinois and Arizona meet in the national championship game. And I don't think it's a coincidence that arguably the two best offensive rebounding teams in college basketball are set on a collision course to play against one another in the final game of the season. Arizona was 10th in the country this year in offensive rebounds per game, and they were 4th in offensive rebound percentage. So basically what that means is, in terms of the percentage of offensive rebounds that they could grab this year, they grabbed the 4th highest percentage. Really impressive number. And this is a large part of how they beat teams. It's another way that they cover up the lack of three-point attempts that they have in these games. Okay, so Michigan has to finish possessions with rebounds. And to their credit, they've done a really good job of that so far this year. They are 3rd in the country in defensive rebounds per game. Arizona is first, by the way. They do a great job of making teams go one and done. In Michigan, they are 33rd in defensive rebound percentage. That needs to be a little bit better in order to keep Arizona off the glass. And one would think, but just because you think doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. One would think that a team as big as Michigan, because they're just an overwhelming amount of size, would be able to keep this Arizona team off the glass. With that being said, no one has kept Arizona off the glass all year. Okay, so despite Michigan having more size than Arizona, it is so important for them to show up and defensive rebound. If they don't do that, then they will not win this game. And Arizona will be moving on to play in the national title game. And again, I can't wait for that game. That is the headliner of the Final Four, which is a really weird thing to say, given that it's the Final Four, and I think everyone is pretty excited to watch it unfold. The other game, UConn playing against Illinois. For UConn, the two things that they have to do, and I'm not sure if they're going to do them, is they have to contain the basketball, and they have to make open shots. When you go back to that game against Duke, in the first half, they missed like 5 wide open threes. If they make 2 of them, then I probably don't turn the game off at halftime. That's probably what happens. So they have to make open shots, and they have to contain the basketball. And UConn has struggled to guard the ball basically all tournament. They have given up so many shots at the rim because they can't stay in front. And Terrace Reed Jr., one of the best centers in college basketball, has been a large part of why that hasn't cost them, right? Does a really good job protecting the rim. He's an offensive beast as well. I'm very intrigued to see how Illinois goes about dealing with him. Okay, but he's going to have his hands full underneath already. And the other thing that I'm really intrigued to see what Illinois does with, Illinois has multiple stretch bigs who can pull Terrace Reed Jr. away from the basket. So if UConn can't contain the ball and Illinois continues to run this 5-out offense that's, gotten them to the Final Four, there's a decent chance that Illinois' offense just kind of looks like a layup line. And if UConn wants to have a chance to win the game, they have got to stay in front of the ball. They cannot allow for Keaton Wagler to just kind of slice and dice the way that he has all tournament long. And I know UConn beat Illinois earlier in the year. That was a long time ago. These teams are very different now compared to compared to who they were back in November, I believe, is when they played. Okay, the other thing, they have to make open shots. Again, part of why they got down to Duke is because they missed wide open looks from 3. And they're going to get open shots. I think that their offense is too good for them not to get open looks. You know that Illinois is going to make their perimeter shots. That's just what Illinois seems to do. And so for UConn, they have to be able to do the same in order to keep pace with an Illinois offense that I think is going to score a lot of points. So those are the notes for Arizona, Michigan, and UConn. I'll give you the 2 things that Illinois has to do in order to beat UConn when we come back in 3 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. We're ready for the Final Four. We're going to break it down with Dan Dakich coming up here in about 10 minutes. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I think I already said that. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, it is greatly appreciated as always. And we talked a little bit about Michigan and Arizona, the things that both of those teams have to do to have a chance to win their game on tomorrow night. Talked a little bit about what UConn needs to do to beat a really good Illinois team. And I feel weird feeling so strongly about UConn or about Illinois beating UConn, given the fact that UConn played Illinois earlier in the year and they won the game. But yet everyone seems to really like Illinois in this game. And it's just, a testament to Coach Underwood and what he's done over the course of the year to help that team improve and get better. And the two things that Illinois has done an incredible job of in this tournament so far is they have offensive rebounded at a really high level, and they've just defended everybody. The way that they've gotten in a stance and just shut down every offense that they've seen so far has been so impressive. And those are the two things that they have to do in order to beat UConn. Illinois has had no fewer than 12 offensive rebounds in every tournament game they have played so far. They had 20 in one of their 4 tournament games. And when you're giving yourself that many extra shots, then you're probably going to win the game. Okay? Like, I think, look, I'll be honest. I play a lot of basketball. Your boy can shoot it at least a little bit. Okay, Chris, when was the last time you went and shot a basketball?
Probably at a carnival or something like that somewhere. Does
Okay.
that count?
Yeah, that counts.
Okay.
For like, how many months or years ago was that?
Oh, man, I don't know. It's been at least a year.
Okay. I'm willing to bet that if we went to a gym, okay, and they gave me 25 shots to make as many threes as possible, and they gave you 100, you would make more than me.
That's being generous. I appreciate that.
With 75 more shots, I feel like you would. And that's what Illinois has done to everybody so far in this tournament. They've limited possessions for opposing offenses because of how they rebound. And then they themselves have earned so many extra possessions by attacking the offensive glass with all the big Serbs that they have playing for their team. Okay, this is a team that is 7th in college basketball this year in offensive rebounds per game. And they are 3rd in offensive rebound percentage. This is a huge part of their identity. And when you look at UConn, Terrace Reed Jr., great big man, probably the best player on that UConn team. Dude's been a menace underneath. I mean, in their second round game, he had like 27 rebounds by himself. That's a lot. That's more rebounds than Iowa had against Illinois in the Elite Eight. Terrace Reed Jr. is just a monster underneath the basket. They have to keep him off the glass. And if they do that, I think they're going to completely dominate the boards. Because outside of Terrace Reed Jr., UConn's small, and Illinois is anything but small. Right? Like, that's one of the trends we're seeing of this Final Four. 3 of the 4 teams are just massive. And Illinois, obviously, being the 3rd team in that with Michigan and Arizona. Here's the other thing that needs to be mentioned about Illinois that I don't think has been mentioned enough. Defensively, they've been incredible. Penn scored 70 points against Illinois in the first round. Illinois won that game by 30 because they, hung 100 up on them. That is the most amount of points they have allowed in a tournament game so far. The only reason why they gave up 70 is because they won by 30, and they had guys that look like me out there playing in the final 4 minutes of that game. They had walk-ons out there. After that, they held Houston, a 2 seed, and VCU, a very good A-10 team who can really score it. They held both of them to 55 points. They held Iowa to 59 points. And this is another thing that I really like about this Illinois team. They can win in multiple ways. They can beat you defensively, like we've seen them do 3 times so far in the NCAA tournament. And they can just go score 100 if they need to. Their flexibility in terms of how they can beat you is a really impressive thing. And it's ultimately why I think they're going to beat UConn, because of their ability to just kind of bend into whatever shape they need to be in order to win the game. I also think they just have more good players. And when in doubt, you bet on the talent. So we're going to have Dan Dakich on the show here in about 5 minutes or so. I believe he's out in Vegas getting ready to play some golf. So, good for him. And yeah, I'm excited to talk Final Four with Dan here in about 5 minutes or so. I also want to talk a little bit about Eric Ebron and his comments on Chris Ballard and the ultimatum that he gave Andrew Luck. Just insane stuff here from Eric Ebron talking about Chris Ballard and Andrew Luck. If you got that, Chris. Sorry, my bad. I should have told you that we were going to that. So But for those who missed it, Eric Ebron, he went on this podcast. I think here it is right here.
Andrew then decides that he's so tired of, he don't tell nobody this. This is the backstory. He's so tired of injury and he just doesn't want to do surgery. You know who the man is around there that gets on everybody's nerves. Big draws over there behind that desk. He tells Andrew, this is word, bro. He tells Andrew, you're either playing this year or we're moving on. Who would tell Andrew Luck that, right?
That's crazy. I
Andrew
didn't know
Luck,
that. That's crazy.
Andrew Luck now says, I'm not going to be ready. I'm tired of playing with pain. I retire.
Just insane stuff there. And I want to note this before I kind of give my thoughts. We'll have Double D give his thoughts here as well. I want to note that Eric Ebron does not like Chris Ballard, contract issues and all those things. And I love that he called him big draws over there behind the desk because, that's just, I think that's a really good way to describe Chris Ballard, who kind of gives off, a little bit of arrogance whenever he speaks. With that being said, I don't think he's lying. Dan Dakich has sat on this show in this time slot and told you for years that something like this transpired. And I think that at this point, I don't think Eric Ebron has any reason to lie. Doesn't mean that he wouldn't. But based off of the stories that we've heard, this seems like something that probably happened. And look, if Eric Ebron knows, everyone in that building probably knew at some point when all this happened. And it's just, add it to the list of things that Chris Ballard has done that don't make any sense, that have just led the Colts into this spiral. Okay. John Buzzard chiming in saying that, all Ballard guys that all of the Ballard guys that are talking are slowly turning on him. I don't know, Shaq Leonard or Darius Leonard, whatever we're supposed to call him at this point, came out, called out Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley, that's Chris Ballard's guy, and so on. And I do think that as more of these guys kind of come out, as we get further and further away from the surprising Andrew Luck retirement, it's amazing how that happened. That was 2018, 2017, around there. That was almost 10 years ago, and we're still pulling stuff out of it here in the market. Pretty insane stuff. But again, like Eric Ebron said, I wouldn't have given Andrew freaking Luck, one of the best quarterbacks in all of the world at the time. You don't give a guy like that an ultimatum. Like, could you imagine, like LeBron James gets drafted, he's like 5 or 6 years into his career and he's had some injuries, and someone looking at him and saying, hey man, you're either going to play or you're gone. Like, that's just bananas to me. And it's just, another example of Chris Ballard messing up the all too important quarterback position. And I just, I want to say that I can't believe it, but I absolutely do, because this is who Chris Ballard is, and this is all that he's done during his time here in Indianapolis. He just shows up, makes a mess of things, blames it on somebody else, turns on his little Southern accents kind of thing, and tries to get everyone else to forget it. It's incredible. Really, no other way to put it. We're hopefully going to have the one and only Dan Dakich here on the show here in a second. We'll talk a little Final Four. We'll talk a little bit about Eric Ebron and what he had to say about Chris Ballard and the ultimatum that he, supposedly gave Andrew Luck, a guy who could have been, the best quarterback that we had seen from the Colts in, since Manning. He just ruined it, and it's really, really bothersome. So I think we're gonna have Dakich here in a second. Maybe we'll see. I'll just keep on talking until then. And only Ballard, and going into year 10, and I just can't. I'm ready for the Final Four. That's what I need to focus on, because if I start talking about Ballard, I'll get all pissy, and I don't really want to do that. So with the Final Four, I think it's always important when it comes to these games to kind of note the players that are worth paying attention to and the ones that aren't, the ones that are going to have the largest impact on the games. Because let's be honest, like you're probably an IU fan or a Purdue fan. You probably haven't, stayed up till 10 p.m. on Tuesday nights to watch Arizona play, which is totally fine. I get that. And so whenever we have these big games that don't involve Purdue or IU, or I guess I'll include Butler in this, I like to kind of give the audience a little bit of an idea of who to kind of pay attention to in these games and who not to. And you have to start, if I was to make a list, I did, of the 10 best players in this Final Four. I think to start that list, it has to be Yaxel Lindenborg, big forward for Michigan. No one in the country right now is playing better than Yaxel is, which is a dope name, by the way. Averaging 21 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 50% from 3 so far in the NCAA tournament. And he's got a pretty cool nickname as well, which, if you have a cool nickname, I'm immediately in. Apparently, people are calling him, quote, Dominican LeBron, which, I don't like comparing guys to LeBron, but I don't mind the nickname. In addition to scoring all these points and pulling in rebounds and dishing out assists, he's only turned the ball over twice in all of March Madness play so far. That is an incredibly impressive thing. Okay, so not only has he been absolutely unguardable, he's also not turning the ball over. Like, he's not doing anything at all to hurt his team. He's also done an excellent job of getting in a stance and defending, which is something that you have to have from your best player. Okay, like your best player has to be able to defend, because if you can't guard, then teams just pick on you, and you cannot pick on Lindenborg of Michigan so far in this NCAA tournament. He's done a great job, whether that's bulldozing his way to the rim, hitting threes. It's been really, really impressive to watch him go about his business. And I think he's clearly the best player left, especially given with how he has played so far throughout this season. Number 2 was a much tougher spot to kind of put somebody in. I would argue that it's Keaton Wagler of Illinois, 6'6", and just a real point guard. Plays at his own pace, can score at all 3 levels, has like a nice little float game, a nice little pull-up jumper, shoots really well from 3. Okay, and then you throw in the fact that his assist to turnover ratio is over 2-1. He's also grabbing 6.5 rebounds per game in these 4 NCAA tournament games that he has played in so far. You have a really complete player who does a solid job defensively as well. And we saw him completely take a game over in the second half of the Elite Eight in that win over Iowa. Something we could hopefully see once again in the Final Four against UConn. So I'm going to finish this list when we come back here in about 3 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, X, the Indy Sports Ticket app, 1430 AM. So many ways to listen. There's really no excuse not to, especially when I have great guests on, like the one and only Dan Dakich. Dan, what's going on? How are you?
Sitting here in traffic on the Las Vegas Strip. Got in it last night after Andrew's ass kicking, and getting ready to go beat the living crap out of a bunch of my buddies in golf for about 3 days. But other than that, everything's good. How you doing, kid?
I'm doing really well. I'm having a blast being back. So, before we talk Final Four, have you seen the Eric Ebron clip that's going a little viral?
Yeah, and we've talked about that for years. Ballard effed that whole thing up. Now, Ebron isn't exactly the greatest source because he's kind of a whack job, but when you watch it, you're kind of like, yeah, it makes sense. And for Ballard to put anything on Andrew Luck, it's just stupid. You know, you and I have talked about a lot of guys did not stay. They retired early from the Colts. And you wonder, you know, Luck, same kind of deal. But Luck got $25 million to go away, which is weird. And it actually confirms what Ebron was saying, because it's obvious Jimmy Irsay didn't want to lose him, thought maybe he would come back. But, man, oh, man, that's a bad look for Ballard.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but then again, when you've been here for a decade, I don't know if when you've been here for a decade and you haven't made the playoffs in the last 5 years, I don't know if it can get much worse.
No, you're right. Didn't help, though. Certainly didn't help. No, you're right. I mean, the fact that he has a job is astounding. It really is when you look at the landscape of college or of NFL football. It's astounding that the Irsay girls have kept him after last year. Unbelievable.
It is. I can't believe it. I've spent a lot of time talking about it the past few days. That and the Final Four. And I was thinking about Arizona the other night. And
he likes MP3.
Their point guard, Bradley, his ability to close games, I think, is really impressive. It's why I like them to beat Michigan. Did you ever play with or coach a point guard who late in games when it was close, like you just knew that your team was going to win because you had that guy?
Oh, yeah, I had a lot of those guys. I had a couple guys in Indiana. Damon Bailey was that guy at Indiana. Calvert Stanley wasn't a point guard, but at Bowling Green, I had to kick Keith McLeod. I think he hit 8 game winners for us. Like whether it was, you know, tie game and he went and got a bucket and got fouled, whether it was down 1, he won 1. Yeah, I mean, in the modern way of playing, everybody's kind of, you know, they're trying to, particularly in the Big Ten, they're trying to get the same size guys, kind of like the Bulls back with Jordan. Everybody was 6'6" across, who's a real, you know, small point guard, that kind of thing. But, yeah, Arizona's got a guy that can do that. Michigan's just got a lot of guys that are going to make plays. So I'll tell you this, I'm taking Arizona, and not because of that. I can't believe that Arizona and Connecticut are both underdogs in this game. I know somebody's got to be, but I'm watching Purdue just get dismantled by Arizona. And Tennessee was kind of an overachieving team, that kind of thing. But the truth of the matter is, I that's one of the reasons that I'm going to take Arizona as a point guard closing. But all of these teams, Michigan really didn't have a whole lot of close games. So I'm kind of fascinated in this game how this is going to go. But you're right. I mean, you get a guy that you're confident in. I had a point guard at Bowling Green named Brandon Part. I think he led the country in assist to turnover. He led the country in something like assists. And when he got the ball in transition, I would just sit back and kind of watch because he was so good. You trusted him. And that's kind of what Arizona has.
He's not prepared.
You know, I'm not sure that that's what Michigan has, but Michigan's so damn good. I told these guys here, I don't care what we're doing. If we're going to play extra golf, I don't care. But my fat ass is going to be in front because I think that game is going to be awesome. Can't wait.
I do too. I think it's the game everyone's looking forward to the most, and I like Arizona as well. But it makes me nervous, Dan. Everyone's picking Arizona, and we know how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I've said this earlier, that Michigan in the early going of the season, and maybe they're back to it. That's the best basketball team I've seen in my time watching college basketball, which is since like 1973. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a team beat good teams that bad. And are they back to that? I don't know, but they certainly did. You know, they did what's it called in Tennessee, and so winning by 30 in the Elite Eight is not the easiest thing in the world, and it doesn't happen that often. But like I said, truthfully, I think both games are going to be unbelievable. Like you got the crazy coaches game between Underwood and Hurley in the first one, and both have toughness. And you know, are you going to bet against Danny Hurley and that crew? I don't know, and I'm anxious to see whether or not. You know, sometimes a win is not, I understand it's survive in advance. I get all that. But sometimes it's not that. Sometimes the way you win propels you. And sometimes the way you win hurts you. And I'm anxious to see with Connecticut how they come out in this game. I got a feeling they're going to come out, and I got a feeling they're going to be great to start this game. And you can't quantify it. But the way they came back, the way they won at the end, Mullins hitting the shot, I just got a feeling that it kind of freed this team up, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm really interested to see, especially Mullins, because it'd been a really rough stretch for him. He was like, I think he's like 14 of 66 from three in his last 10 games, and then he makes that shot. And I think that when you're a freshman, and if I'm wrong, please tell me. I think that when you're a freshman and you hit a shot like that, I think that, like you said, it propels you, and I think he's going to have a really big game for UConn.
Yeah, I think it does with anybody, though, truthfully. A freshman, sophomore, junior. But to your point about him, when I watch him, he plays bad. Not bad. He doesn't play like the guy that everybody tells me is a top 15 or 20 pick in the NBA draft. But everybody tells me that. Guys that I respect in the NBA have told me that. They've actually called me over the last couple of weeks saying, hey, what do you think? Have you seen enough? And I really haven't. But I think I would be shocked if what you just said didn't happen. I would be shocked if he didn't come out and play his absolute brains out. And by brains out, look, I don't know whether he's a good defender or not, and I really don't care. I think he's going to come out and first 3-4 shots, he's going to make 4 or 5 or 5 of 6, something like that. I really do. I just think that's how it goes. And you're right. You know, freshmen, maybe even more so. I don't know. But I know anybody would be propelled by that. Now, the problem is for him and for others is, boy, you're getting a lot of attention. I mean, you are getting a lot of attention. And that may be where the freshman thing comes in for him, because he's always gotten attention, but this is on a whole new level. I don't know if you saw it, but he had, what did he have? He must have had 50 to 100 people around his locker, you know, in the media day. And rightfully so, right? He's back at home. He's an Indiana kid. He just hit the best shot, all that kind of stuff. But, Jonathan, when you hit that, sometimes you can say you're ready, you can be ready, but there's just a little bit of you that isn't as locked in as when you don't get that kind of attention. That's just human nature, and I'm fascinated by it, but I believe in the kid. I think the kid's great, and I think he's going to have a monster first half.
I'm excited to watch it. I really like watching Illinois play, and I know you know Coach Underwood decently well. Is there something that he does because to get his teams to offensive rebound as well as they do?
Yeah, he and Calvin Sampson, they demand it more than any other. And not everybody does. Like John Beilein never did. I asked my son when he was playing for Beilein, you guys ever rebound? He goes, never. Because we don't do rebounding drills. He goes, he didn't care. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, it's the first coach I'd ever heard. You know, Izzo famously would put shoulder pads, helmets on, and everybody beat the crap out of each other. We put one of those, you know, rims on the rim where it wouldn't go in, that kind of thing. But he emphasizes it, and he's got great length. Like the biggest part of the Big Ten success this year is they adapted a SEC-type mentality for long, big wings. It used to be the Big Ten, you always knew who the 1, the 2, and all that nonsense, the 3-man, the 4-man. People would say that. But the Big Ten coaches, I've talked to a bunch of them, have changed. They've gone to, again, I'm going to reference the Bulls with Jordan and Harper and Pippen and Rodman. Basically, all guys for the most part, the same size. And if you're not the same size and you're 6'3", you're really stocky. I can't remember the kid's name for Illinois, but he kind of runs the thing. He's a built 6'4", just built like crazy. And so he can switch to everybody, not because of height, but he can switch to everybody because of strength. And that's what Underwood has done. And when you've got that, and you've got guys, and Underwood told me the other day that these guys are really smart. These Serbian kids that he have, they just know how to play, and they're kind of relentless in loving basketball. So you do that, you have that combined with the size, you got offensive rebounding damn near built in.
Yeah, I'm not gonna add anything to that because you mentioned just the size of these Big Ten teams. How do you think Arizona's physicality?
I got idiots telling me they're Croatian. They're Serbians that grew up in Croatia. What is wrong with these people that I hang with? You know what? I need to hang with a smarter group of person. I really do. I gotta up my game. I gotta up it. Jeez. Or I'm making that up. I'm not sure which. Maybe I'm making that up.
They're all Serbs. If they're from Eastern Europe, they're all Serb.
If they play well, they're Serbian. If they play crappy, they're Croats. Screw them. We hate them. I know this. Peja Stojakovic is Serbian. I don't care where his son, maybe they got divorced and the mom moved to Croatia, but that one's Serbian. So is Mirkovic.
Okay. I think the twins are Serbs as well.
They're all Serbs. Only if they play well. Now, if they lost in the first round, those freaking Croatians, they need Viagra. Us Serbs, we don't need Viagra. That's how I describe it. We don't need Viagra, and we don't need enthusiasm. That's built in.
That's right. I mean, Arizona has a bunch of Serbs too. Then with the way that they're playing.
Hey, I watched the Serb last night for Auburn. He didn't look. He didn't look like a normal Serb, except his face. I looked at my wife. I go, I haven't seen that guy's name, but he looked Serbian. Sure enough, his name was like Vic or something like that, and he was dunking all over Illinois State last night.
Yeah, he was a little thinner. Is that what you mean? Because I feel like most Serbs are pretty thick.
Yeah, my sister went there. My sister and my niece went to Serbia last summer, and they came back going, man, these dudes are massive. Like, and when I'd go play in the Serbian national tournament, which, is a really good tournament, guys to play. And, man, all the dudes that would come over and play were huge back then. And, Serbia's smart. They make the tall people have sex with the tall people, Jonathan, and that creates more tall people.
I mean,
how about that?
I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, both of my parents are short. I'm 5'8".
If you want to see something incredible, go to YouTube or go to wherever and look up Red Star Belgrade basketball. It is the most insane environment you will ever see for basketball. They shoot rockets at each other. They throw heat coins at the coaches, and so people come over. And they're like, well, just look it up on YouTube. It's the most amazing thing you will ever see in a basketball court. It's called Red Star Belgrade. It's the best team in that particular area. And it is, and when I mean insane, it's something that, Mackey Arena's pretty tough. Yeah, my ass. Go to Red Star Belgrade and look that up, and you'll be shocked at what happens.
I remember a few years ago when the Nuggets were on the rise and people were talking about Jokic and playing on the road in the playoffs, and someone brought up, you said Red Star Belgrade?
Yeah, Belgrade. Yeah, Red Star Belgrade.
Yeah, that's where
basketball.
That's where Jokic grew up, and I remember seeing a video, and it's like, I think he's going to be fine going to Oklahoma City on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, those guys. It's just different. It's a passion, and most European countries. The World Cup. I always said my bucket list for sports has nothing to do with Super Bowls. It is to go to a soccer game where I could get killed. That has always been my bucket list. I want to go to a soccer game where everybody's so crazy, they're shooting things, and that's basketball in that area. And those kids have come over, and according to Underwood, all they want to do, they're appreciative. They smoke cigarettes, they drink Slivovitz, and they're in the gym. And that's it. That's what they do. And you know what? When you got that kind of guy and you relate to him like Underwood does, as a little bit older guy with a good reputation over there, you got a pretty good team, and that's what they have.
they're and win. They win a lot of games too. They're really good. I like Illinois and Arizona. I know you said that you like Arizona. What about in the Illinois and UConn game?
The only reason I like UConn is, and that's what I'm going to say is over. But I always have the impression that Illinois does not beat national teams. Now they just did, okay? They just did, and they're in the Final Four. But to me, Danny Hurley's teams, they just play in the biggest of moments. They don't get shook. Now they played bad, and I don't think this is one of his better teams, but I do like their front line. But they don't. They're so used to winning. And if you think about Storrs, Connecticut, I think the greatest team coach ever, team sports coach, is Gino Auriemma. I mean, he's been to 25 Final Fours. It's just like inbred in them that when you come there, I used to say this about Indiana. When you come to Indiana back in the day, you're not coming to make the NCAA tournament. You're coming to win the NCAA tournament or win in the NCAA tournament. And I feel like that's almost, it's like a birthright in Storrs, Connecticut. Again, that's the women, and more so than the men, really, as good as Danny Hurley's been. But the truth of the matter is, I just have a really difficult time betting against Danny Hurley. It's like, you and I used to talk about Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. When they're getting the points, you take them. And I feel that way about Danny Hurley in the NCAA tournament. He doesn't get the point. He doesn't get points very often. They're not an underdog very often, but when they are, I feel a moral obligation almost to take them. Like don't be a fool. Take the team that's used to winning and has won, and we'll see. But no, Jonathan, I can't wait for this Final Four. I don't think it could have. I don't think it could have been a better Final Four. I really don't. It's just fascinating, the whole thing.
I don't think it could have been either. And to add to your great points on UConn, I think when Coach Hurley went on your Don't At Me show in the morning from 9 to 11 over on Outkick, I think it was last year, he was just kind of like, look, we play basketball here, and that's it, because there's nothing else to do here at UConn. And I think that's such a big part of how they're able to stay in games. And I thought, the toughness was on full display against Duke in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, well, think about it. They've won more national championships since 1999 than Indiana University has since 1940, when we won our first one. And they've done it with 3 different coaches. Ali gets fired, but he still won national championship. And you know what? Jim Calhoun won a bunch, and Danny's won 2. And when you think about that, it's one of those deals where you go, whoa, hold on. Like it's not just it's not, how do I put this right? It's the expectation. It's not just we're going to get to the Final Four. That is the expectation. We're hanging a banner, and I fascinated by it, because there's really, other than Indiana has better weather, there's no difference between Storrs, and Bloomington, really. I mean, it's a small college town, about 45 minutes to an hour away from big city, Hartford. There's nothing around it. But somehow, some way, here you are. And it's fast. I've never been there. I've never been to a game there. But I'm fascinated by the run that has gone on for 27 years now. I guess 27, 99. And I don't anticipate it stopping. Doesn't mean they're going to win every year. Doesn't mean they're going to win 3 out of 4, which they would if they win this one. But I don't anticipate that stopping, because that's just what they do and who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, I got to run. Thank you so much for taking 20 minutes or so to come on the show.
Keep killing it. And make sure those guys get you a bunch of ads so you can make a lot of money. You're getting ready to have a baby. Let's go. Let's get serious about this.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, brother.
You got
have
it,
a great day. Have a
you
great
too.
weekend. See
you,
you, buddy.
See you. That is the great Dan Dakich, who, you could have heard in this time slot last week. He's out in Vegas playing some golf. And we're going to talk more Final Four, more Colts. Chris has a conspiracy theory that we're going to get to at some point today. The show's just loaded. More on the Final Four when we come back in about 3 minutes.
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching the show on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. 317-228-1430. That is the number. If you have thoughts on the Final Four, call in. I want to hear them. Who do you like? Do you like Illinois and Arizona like everybody seems to? Or, you go in the other way. You take in Michigan and UConn. Call in 317-228-1430 and let me know your thoughts on the Final Four. My thoughts on the Final Four. I've given them out a decent amount throughout the week. I really just want to highlight some specific players that I think need to be paid attention to. So for Funless Friday, something we'll do every Friday here on the show, I made a list. These are the 10 best players in the Final Four this year. I started the list earlier, paused it so we could get Dan on. Number 1, Yaxel Lindenborg, big, small forward for Michigan, does everything, scores, rebounds, defends, play makes, best player in the Final Four, and I don't really think there's any sort of question about it. Keaton Wagler is who I put second, and I just, I probably have him too high. I just think he's awesome. Tall, long. He's a real point guard. Like, he wants to get his teammates involved, and if he can't, then he just does it himself. We saw it in the second half of that Iowa game. Third, I have Braden Burries. That is the shooting guard for Arizona. Dude's been just a lethal scorer in all 4 of these NCAA tournament games. Dude's averaging like 18 points. He's shooting an insane 68% from 3 in the NCAA tournament. Again, it's not like he's taking 8 a game. He's only taking a couple. But still, don't leave that guy open right now. He does an excellent job drawing fouls, finishing through contact, which everyone for Arizona seems to do this year. The dude can really score it at all 3 levels. Has a nice little pull-up jumper in there as well. He also rebounds. He's a playmaker. He does everything for Arizona, and it's why this guy's going to be a lottery pick, probably a top 10 pick. So I have him as the 3rd best player in the Final Four. Fourth, I have Terrace Reed Jr., the big center for UConn. Dude's just been dominant. You can make a strong argument that he has been the best big man in the NCAA tournament so far. And that's saying something because there's a lot of really good ones in college basketball this season. Against Furman, first round game, don't care. 31 points, 27 rebounds. Like, that's insane. Someone says, yeah, well, it's Furman. Yeah, but no one else grabbed 27 rebounds against Furman in a single game this year. So just an incredible athlete who is dominant on the glass. Despite UConn's early struggles against Duke, he didn't have any. He got off to a really good start. Back to the basket, putting in work, getting buckets. And, he's just awesome, man. Physical, has good feet, scores with touch, and does a great job protecting the rim as well, which has been so important for UConn, given the fact that, they haven't done a very good job of guarding the ball so far in the NCAA tournament. So I've got Terrace Reed Jr., 4th. 5th, I've got another center. We got Ade Mara, which I know I said his first name wrong. That's fine. Dude's 7'3". He's done such a good job of staying out of foul trouble in the NCAA tournament. Okay. He's been a terror, really, on both ends of the floor. He's averaging 13.5 points a game, shooting 64% from the field. He's blocking 2.8 shots per game so far in these 4 games for Michigan. And I know that their path has been a little bit easier, but, that's not their fault. You have to beat who you have to beat. Okay, he's also anchoring what has been a really good defense so far this year. And the reason why I really enjoy his game, the reason why Michigan I think is so much fun to watch is because of him. Like he does such a great job of passing the basketball. And when you have a center who can really pass it, that's why I think Mara's a better center than Zach Edey was for Purdue. Zach Edey didn't pass the ball like Mara does. I don't think Zach Edey was as light on his feet either as Mara is. And so the defensive ability to just to guard the rim, the offensive ability to not only turn his back to the basket and score, but the ability to turn his back to the basket and pass, or even catch it, 18 feet away from the basket, face up, survey the floor, and then make the right play. It's really impressive. I love his game. The sixth best player in the Final Four, Koa Pete from Arizona. Koa Pete has been the primary architect behind Arizona's all-out blitz on the paint so far. This dude's just a monster. He's just a monster, man. He's probably like 6'7". He's probably listed at like 6'9", though. But he's 6'7", straight muscle, and he just plays through people's chest. It's like watching Marshawn Lynch play basketball. There's that very viral clip of Marshawn Lynch, talking about, breaking people down. Because, people can't take it when you run through their face over and over and over and over and over again. And then he has the famous line where they're like, "Can you shorten that for us?" And he goes, "Run through a mother, what's face." And that's kind of how Koa Pete plays basketball. He's playing straight through your chest. And he's going to attack the offensive glass. And he's not just going to attack the offensive glass. He's going to grab it, and he's going to slam it home for a nice little put-back dunk. He's incredibly aggressive, plays off the dribble really well, whether that's passing. He's got a nice little, free throw line, pull-up jumper. That's a big part of his game. He makes free throws. I mean, this freshman forward has just been dominant in all four of these Arizona, NCAA tournament wins so far. He's got not one, but two 20-point games so far through the tournament, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But when you have as many options as Arizona does on offense, to be able to go get 20 is impressive. So love Koa Pete. Think he's the sixth best player in the Final Four. Seventh, we got Jaden Bradley, the senior point guard, transferred in from Auburn, the Big 12 player of the year. And I feel weird not only having him seventh, but also having him, third. He's the third Arizona guy that I've named. And he's just been awesome. He's been so good. He was a highly rated recruit coming out of IMG Academy. Ends up having to stay in college for 4 years because he just wasn't quite good enough to declare for the draft and go play in the NBA and do all those things. But his ability late in games is it's such an important thing. You have to have a guard, or if it's not a guard, some sort of ball handler who can just close games for you. And that's what he is for Arizona. He's the closer on the best team, I think, in college basketball. Okay, and he set the tone early, had a big game against Florida, and then, he's come, and he's just kind of carried that throughout the entire season. Again, he's the Big 12 player of the year, and against Arkansas and Purdue, in two, pretty dominant games, he combined for 28 points and 11 assists against those two teams. I mean, the guy is just an absolute stud. Love watching his game. I really like this Arizona team. And I it's just, I get so interested talking about Arizona and Michigan because I feel like the more I talk about Michigan, the more I think they're going to win. The more I talk about Arizona, the more convinced I am that they're going to win. We're going to have Zack Gray. ZG the Grapevine on X, the best sports gambler I know. He's going to join the show coming up here in about 20 minutes, and he's going to tell you how to bet on the Final Four. We got JR, who is apparently not big on the Final Four. JR, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, what's up, Jonathan? Welcome back, my brother.
Thank you. Chris gave me a little note here saying that you're not big on the Final Four. Why is that?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not big on. I just I'm a casual observer, and I'm like most people. I got get in the bracket challenges. I had Michigan State versus Iowa State. It was kind of a long shot in my final, and I had Michigan State. So looked good for a little while, and obviously that fell out of favor. I'm more of a. We talked before when you were in Dan's show before. More of a. I know you're a Cubs guy, right?
That's right.
I'm the Reds guy, so
okay.
I fought with you, Dan. I'm a big baseball guy, and I just had just a couple things to throw at you. I mean, really, if I had I think UConn's going to win just because the story behind him and the craziness that is Hurley and Mullins and all that. I think that ride continues, but that's just what do I know? You see the two teams I had picked, so.
Fair. I mean, dude, it's Danny Hurley. I'm never going to say that Danny Hurley is like a bad option. I mean, even going back to last year, like they played Florida, who ended up winning the national title. They played them in the second round and probably should have won. Like if they make 2 more open threes, they probably do. And that's with, the worst team that he's probably had during his time at UConn, at least over the last 4 years. And so I don't look, all 4 of these teams are so good. I could see any of them winning it. I don't know, man. I like Arizona. I just think they have more talent than everybody else. And when in doubt, I think I'm going to pick the team that has the most talent.
Yeah, that's true. But, it just seems like to me, Arizona is that team every year. They're kind of like the Chargers in the NFL. Every year it's like, oh, this is going to be the year. So I wanted to kind of hit on the Ballard thing. I know I've heard Dan talk about that before and heard you talk about it. My opinion of Ballard is seems like he gets pushed around a lot. So I personally couldn't see him just being that ballsy like that. He seems like a pushover to me. But I guess if that's the case, that's the case. But I personally can't see him being that, quote unquote,
I think
mean guy.
He seems like the guy. I feel like he gets fed up a lot, and like even when you hear him talk about the media, like I played a clip yesterday where he was talking about what the media said whenever whenever Steichen named Daniel Jones as the starter, and like that was like a week-long thing, and then I think people understood, and I think Ballard's a whiner as well, so I'm not overly surprised by it. Why do you think he's a pushover?
Well, I mean, just a lot. I mean, one thing that you guys talked about before, Dan talked about, and I heard you talk about, the whole, the offensive lineman wasn't Nelson his rookie year, basically MF&M on the practice field. And it just seems like he's maybe not pushover, but it seems like to me that he pushover / he's kind of a player's GM, sounds like to me. And it just sounds like I would think he would be just kissing Luck's butt to all ends of the earth to try not to give him that ultimatum. So, I mean, I could be wrong. He's definitely a whiner. I mean, definitely a whiner for sure. So this will be a good / entertaining year for you to be back once the Colts roll around, because I think it's just going to be another cluster.
I'm with you, JR. Thanks for the call, man.
Take care. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, the Ballard thing's interesting. And to go back, Dan said it. I said it before we played the audio the first time. Eric Ebron does not like Chris Ballard. That is very much on the record. I won't get into the history of it. Dan called Eric Ebron a nut. He said he was crazy, I think. I don't want to mess up his words. But ultimately, Ebron, not the best source probably on the situation. And look, the truth of it is, we won't know if Chris Ballard gave Andrew Luck an ultimatum like that for quite a while, because Andrew Luck is too nice of a guy to be like, yeah, he did that. Chris Ballard certainly isn't going to do it anytime soon, because his ultimate goal is to keep his job as the Indianapolis Colts GM. So this is one of those things we probably won't find out for 20 years or so. But I get what JR's saying, and I think it's a really good point. I do think that there's some validity to calling Chris Ballard a pushover. But at the same time, I think Chris Ballard wants to be a big guy, and ultimately that's not who he is. And when guys try to be who they're not, things usually don't go according to plan. So, hopefully Andrew Luck comes out and says something about it. I'm hoping one of the reporters here in Indianapolis brings it up whenever Chris Ballard does media again, because I think it's something that everyone is very curious about. So will that happen? Probably not, but we'll see. So when we come back in about 3 minutes, I'm going to finish up telling you who the 10 best players in the Final Four are, and we'll have Zack Gray, the best sports gambler that I know. He's coming on at 1:30 to tell you how to bet the Final Four.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching the show on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. To finish out my list of the 10 best players in the Final Four, number 8, I've got Andrei Stojakovic. Also, if you want to call in and talk, Final Four, 317-228-1430 is the number. Stojakovic, I love this dude, man. Probably my favorite player in the Final Four. Son of, former NBA sharpshooter Peja Stojakovic. Let me back that up. Son of former NBA champion with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011, Peja Stojakovic. His son plays entirely differently, but he's been super impactful, okay? He's 6'7", one of the best finishers in college basketball this year. does a great job of just using his size against smaller players, and he's been on just a heater so far in the tournament. Okay, he scored 17, 13, and 21 points in his last 3 outings against Iowa, Houston, and VCU. This is a guy who's transferred twice. This is one of those, transfer portal success stories. Originally played at Stanford, and then he played at Cal, and then he's like, you know what? If I want to win something, I should probably leave the West Coast. And now he comes out to Illinois, and, he's having a really good season, averaging about 13.5 points and 4.5 rebounds per game, only shooting about 24% from 3. But then again, he doesn't take very many. So love Stojakovic for Illinois. Certainly has to be named as one of the 10 best players in the Final Four. Number 9, we've got Alex Karaban. This is really partially a respect thing. I think that when you're playing in your third Final Four and you're as important to your team as Alex Karaban is, you kind of have to be on the list. Okay, he had a rough shooting game against Duke, 2 for 10 from the floor, 1 of 6 from 3, but made 2 just critical plays late. UConn's second to last 3 with about a minute to go. He hit, and then, of course, he had the assist to Braden Mullins on the game-winning 3 in a spot where a lot of guys would have just chucked it. It's kind of like, it's not the same thing, but it's similar to the Christian Laettner turnaround jumper to win the game against Kentucky in the Elite Eight, where Laettner catches it, and because he's an older player, he knows that with 1.6 seconds left on the clock, like that's more time than you realize. And so he takes a dribble, little shoulder fake, turns over, and he knocks it down. And then Kentucky fans get upset, and therefore that makes everybody else happy. Kind of the same thing here with Karaban, where I think a lot of younger players panic in that spot. They chuck it up. But Karaban, just being an older guy who had been there before, takes a breath. Oh, look at the freshman, wide open from 38 feet. Let me give it to him. And then he obviously goes on to knock it down. So the experience factor here, I think, is really important. This guy's also a 2-time All-Big East selection, right? Averaging, 13 points per game this year, in the final year of his college career. Has a real chance to win 3 national titles in a 4-year span, an achievement usually reserved for players that played for John Wooden, right, when he was at UCLA. So Alex Karaban, I think, has to make this list. And then finally, we're going to go with Krivas, the big Serbian center for Arizona. You got Tommy Lloyd, who has done a really good job of, helping bring in all of these European kids. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that Illinois and Arizona, the 2 teams that do the best job of recruiting in Europe, are in the Final Four. Krivas is a guy who, played for Lithuania and has played in the EuroLeague and all of these things, and, averaging, 10 points and 8 rebounds per game. He's one of the best, defending centers in all of college basketball. He's a really important part to Arizona and their run. Does a lot of sneaky things. Like, whenever you watch Arizona, you obviously get caught up in, like, the Koa Peets and the Jaden Bradleys and the Braxton Burries and those guys. And then Krivas just kind of floats under the radar, but he does so many good things for them on both the offensive and defensive end of the floor. But you definitely feel more of his impact on the defensive side of the ball. Coming up here in a minute, hopefully, we'll get Zack Gray on the show. He's going to tell you the best way to bet the Final Four. I know for me, I really want to bet Arizona. I want to take them plus 1.5. But the issue is everybody seems to like Arizona. And then I really want to take Illinois minus 1.5. But do I really want to bet against Danny Hurley? I don't know what to do. That's why we bring on Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine on X. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
I feel like I'm in like an alternate universe right now, Jay Smith.
Why is that?
I feel like we're just back in a reality where everything is right.
I agree.
We're on the show together on a Friday afternoon. It just feels right.
It does, man. I'm with you, dude. Like you said, it just feels right. Like I haven't I've hit the ground running here since the Final Four is here in Indy, and people would rather hear about that than where I've been for the last 5 months. But like emotionally for the last 5 months, I've been in not a great place, man. I've missed it. Like you said, all is right again having you on a Friday.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get after it with you. I'm hoping that I can provide some insight. Can I be a bit honest with you?
Yeah.
Can I be a bit honest with you? The Grapevine has not yet released his Final Four picks, but he can darn sure talk about the game.
Okay. Sounds good. So here's where I'm at, and then we can kind of go from here. I really want to bet Arizona because I think Arizona is the best team in the country. My holdup is everybody agrees with me, and those big buildings in Vegas aren't made big because they're wrong. And then I really want to bet Illinois because even though UConn beat them earlier in the year, I just think Illinois has more talent. I think Wagler has come on pretty strongly since that game. I like their size. I think they're going to dominate the glass. But I don't want to bet against Danny Hurley. I don't know how to kind of mesh all these things together. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about the games. How are you feeling so far?
Yeah, so it's been one of those things where I still don't trust Brad Underwood. Is it has that ship sailed? Like, do I need to lock in on him now? Like, is he a guy that can win a national championship?
So I mean,
I know he just made the Final Four, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, do you think that he has the chops to go head to head with Hurley and UConn right now and pull this off? I think that's the biggest question. I think you'd have to do a lot to get to the point where you think Illinois outcoaches UConn tomorrow.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking in terms of that. And then we had Dan Dakich on earlier, and that's basically what he said. He was like, Illinois just doesn't win games like this, and he and Coach Underwood are friends and all those things. And so hearing him say that, I was like, man, like I didn't really even think about that part of it, but maybe it's because I've seen UConn be awesome. I kind of feel like they've overachieved, which is weird to say about a team that's won like 33 games this year. I just think that I think we're going to walk away from this game if Illinois wins, and we're going to be like, man, Coach Hurley coached one heck of a game. He just didn't have the horses that Illinois does.
And I think that's obviously the biggest matchup. I don't know if you've touched on it, but Illinois is the biggest team in college basketball, if I have that correct, right?
I thought it was Michigan. They're both huge.
They're both, yeah. And I think the idea here is like, who's going to win? Is it going to be Harris Reed or is it going to be Illinois' bigs?
Yeah, and here's my other thing with UConn, joined by Zack Gray. Follow him on X at ZG the Grapevine. Does a great job of telling you how to bet college hoops, college football when that rolls around, the NFL, all of it. So make sure you go follow him on X. That's kind of the thing. I'm really interested because here's the other thing. I'm getting flustered here. There's so many directions I want to go. I don't think UConn has done a very good job of guarding the ball. And like when you go and you look at that Duke game, like I think half of Duke shots came at the rim, half of Michigan State shots came at the rim. Even when they played UCLA, a lot of UCLA shots came right at the rim. And I think one of the differentiators is Illinois' ability to play a center who can stretch the floor and pull Harris Reed away from the basket. Like there's a part of me that's like, I kind of expect for Illinois' offense to look like a layup line at points just because they don't guard the ball well and Illinois' ability to kind of spread teams out.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that, Jay Smith. And, like, I fully expect there to be a lot of time during the game where it feels like that UConn might not have the answers for Illinois. But, again, like, the counterpunch. Okay, UConn comes back out and hits Illinois with something. How long is it going to take for Illinois to adjust? I just think I trust UConn to be able to make 2-3 adjustments throughout a game more than Illinois. And I think that's where I land. Do I think UConn's going to blow them out like the last time they played? Absolutely not. But I do think that UConn will outlast them like they've outlasted everyone in this tournament and seemed to outlast everyone every tournament.
And it's just like I said, like that is the holdup because UConn is just like you know what you're going to get from them. Like they're not going to beat themselves. I don't.
You're going to go against them. Like you of all people have seen this firsthand. Like I can't believe that you're considering Illinois, even if it makes sense.
I just like the players more, and I like so much like watching UConn play Duke. In the first half, I think they went into the breakdown by almost 20. And you're watching it, and Mullins and Caravan combined to go they missed 5 just wide open threes. And it happened, and it didn't feel abnormal, if that makes sense. I just don't know. I love the UConn offense. I just don't know if they have enough shooting like they have in years past. And I don't know if they have enough depth in the front court to match what Illinois has going on right now.
Well, that doesn't matter, Jay Smith. None of those matchups, none of that actual play on the court matters, Jay Smith. You have dark magic in Stores, Connecticut.
Dark magic. Fair enough. Joined by Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine on X. He's currently telling me how wrong I am about Illinois, and this is why we love him. Keep going. Go ahead. You were saying, sorry.
Well, it's just like it just feels like this is kind of like the Chiefs or the Patriots or the Warriors. At a certain point, everyone picks them to lose, and then they find a way to win, even if their team isn't, considered the best. They just find a way to win. And I think that's what we see. And all of the matchup advantages that you're talking about are true. But at the end of the day, UConn just finds a way to win sometimes.
So when I was doing the show with Dan, we talked about a rule that we had, or I guess more of a rule that he had. He's like, whenever Nick Saban was coaching, whenever Urban Meyer was coaching, if they got points, you always take them because they never get points.
Yeah.
And it feels like you feel the same way about Hurley.
1,000%. I am an adopted UConn basketball fan just because I feel like everyone hates Hurley, and I kind of like him.
I love him.
I think he's funny. And I think he does a really good job constructing his rosters to where there's enough shooting, there's enough modern style of offense, but he also brings out that gritty college basketball mentality, defense, that kind of thing. I love this program, and I just think that they can beat you in any way that you want on any given night.
They can, and it's because they have Hurley, and I'm with you. I love Danny Hurley. I know people don't like the antics, I guess, even though I wouldn't call him antics because I truly believe he's just being himself. And the whole anger thing, I kind of like it. And I think it's different from some of the other coaches we've seen. Mick Cronin has a pretty similar personality. But I think the difference, and why I'm not really a Mick Cronin guy, but I am a Danny Hurley guy, Danny Hurley's anger is almost never directed towards his players. It's almost always directed toward the officials, whereas Mick Cronin, he'll get into his players a little bit more. But I'm with you. We'll see, man. I don't know.
I know my model is going to pick Illinois to win. I'm not going to take Illinois. If it's a big enough spread, I'm not going to take UConn either. I'm just guessing when I release my model tonight, it's going to say Illinois. And I don't disagree with my model a whole lot. You know that. I'm pretty tight with it, and it's done me well over the years. But there's just sometimes where you just don't account for some of the stuff, that the intangibles that a team like UConn possesses over the years.
Yeah, and the experience factor matters. Again, joined by Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine on X. Having a guy in Alex Caravan who, could you imagine winning 3 national titles in 4 years?
I mean, is he considered one of the best UConn players of all time if he does that? I know he doesn't have the high-end stats, but he's been a big piece on 3 different teams that have potentially won the national title.
He's been all Big East twice as well.
Yeah, but the Big East is kind of mid.
You're right. It's this year especially. It was St. John's and UConn and Villanova, I guess. All right. I want to switch gears. I want to talk a little bit of Michigan and Arizona. I think the most interesting thing for me in this game is watching the physicality of Arizona and how it does against the sheer size of Michigan. Because I think, Michigan looks like the biggest team in college basketball. You got Mara at the rim, who was third in college basketball this year in blocks per game. And you have an Arizona team that isn't going to care. They're going to go to the rim anyway. How do you feel about that game?
This game absolutely disgusts me.
Oh.
I hate everything about it, Jay Smith. Michigan? I have to watch Michigan in the Final Four. And then not only that, I have to watch Tommy Lloyd's face in the Final Four. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I know these are probably the two best teams in college basketball, but I am not going to have fun watching this game. I don't like either of these teams. They're way too good. I don't like them. I hope they both lose, and I hope Illinois UConn somehow becomes the national title.
What's wrong with Tommy Lloyd? This is new. Like you being an Ohio State fan, I understand the Michigan stuff. What's the matter with Tommy Lloyd?
You just seen his face? He's got he just kind of looks like a guy that he just kind of, I don't trust him. And especially with their tournament resume. And this is the first time he's made a Final Four, right? This is the first time they've even came close, right?
This is the first time they've gotten past the Sweet 16.
Yeah. I just don't know if we were talking about Underwood and I trust him 1,000 million more times than I do Tommy Lloyd. But here we are. Both teams are in the Final Four. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that these were the two best teams pacing the college basketball universe this year. But in all reality, this is going to be a banger. Are we going to see an NBA score tonight or tomorrow night?
You thinking 102 to 100, like Kentucky and North Carolina a decade ago with Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox and those guys? Is that kind of you say an NBA score?
I think we could see a 97-92 finish or something like that, or even get into the hundreds. I think this is going to be a really high-level basketball game. I think the shot making is going to be good. I think the freshmen for Arizona are going to be good. Obviously Lindenborg is going to be great. I think all the stars are going to come out, and it's going to be a banger. I just wish it was two different teams.
Oh, that's funny. I'm of the belief that whoever wins this game is going to win the national title because, like you said, these are the two best teams. And the Tommy Lloyd, does Arizona's response in the second half against Purdue give you any sort of comfort whatsoever in terms of your Tommy Lloyd questions?
It might if he said that. If he wouldn't have said, I was just a fan watching just like you in the second half. I put it all on my players. There's no way that happened. He's lying.
Hey, man, players guy. He's players coach.
Jay Smith, name one coach that would just say, it's on you guys in the second half of an Elite Eight game.
John Calipari.
That's not what happened.
He might be the only one.
Honestly.
Yeah.
They came back against Purdue, but he was acting like he didn't do anything and was oh, I put it all on the players, yada, yada, yada. It might be coach speak, whatever. But that kind of comment where it's obviously not true is why I have a problem with Tommy Lloyd.
That's totally fair. That makes sense. I get that.
It's kind of like my irrational hate for, or your irrational hate for Shedeur Sanders.
What are you talking about? I like Shedeur Sanders. What? Where did this come from? Joined by Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine over on X. He'll have his picks out tonight for the Final Four. Make sure you go and check out all of his stuff. So I know you said you haven't given out your picks yet, but it sounds to me like you're going to be betting coaches here more opposed to the teams. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm landing. I wouldn't say that every single year, but I think this year in particular, there's kind of a stark contrast here.
Yeah,
I think you have in both matchups a guy I trust and a guy I don't trust. And more times than not, I feel like that coach is going to pull away, especially when rosters are semi-equal in talent and construction. So, yeah, I think this is a unique year for me where I'm thinking coaches, and I'm not usually that way. You know that. But I think it's such a stark contrast this year that that's kind of the angle I'm taking.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Before I let you go, so for those who don't know, Zach and I met when my freshman year of college. I was trying to become a good baseball player. Zach was already a good one. He was getting ready to go play some indie ball, and so I love to talk baseball with Zach. He's a Reds fan, which we'll pray for him. We do have Easter on Sunday. What do you make of the ABS challenge?
I think it's perfect. I think it's fast enough, and the results come back fast enough where it doesn't slow the game down too much. You don't have time to look at it like the normal review on plays at the base and stuff like that. And you have to have some strategy. And I think it can really affect games when done right. And I think it can really hurt you if done wrong. And I think adding anything like that doesn't slow down the game is good for baseball. That thing, it makes it more engaging.
This is the question I've been dying to ask you and every former baseball player that I'm going to talk to about this. Is there an umpire or a game that you remember where you're like, man, I wish this was a thing when I played?
Yes, that's literally the first thing I thought about. Gary in Michigan, home plate umpire, nicest guy in the world, loved him. He loved me too, but boy, was he susceptible to that 3 balls off the plate outside pitch. There's like two or three I can think of where I would have been absolutely mashing my helmet trying to get a challenge off.
Like the CB Buckner is I believe that's his name. Rough time for him, man.
In Cincinnati, he did that in Cincinnati too.
Yeah,
the Reds.
Right.
I was watching that game, so I went and watched my nephew's baseball game, and then we went out to eat with my brother and everyone, and we were watching that game, and it was like challenge, 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 and they just kept hitting it over and over again, and like them winning all of those, literally, I think like won them the game. Like without those balls being reversed, I don't think they win, and I think that is the strategy. And then you look on the flip side, the Red Sox lose both of those early, and they don't have any more for the rest of the game. Yeah. And CB Buckner's back there, freestyling on what's a strike and a ball.
I saw a thing, one of the games he did, he got like 88% of the calls right. And when I hear that, I'm like, that's pretty good. And it's like, wait, that means 1 in every 9 he's getting wrong. And there's, 220 pitches or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that the bottom line is like, I don't think they're going to be perfect. But at this point in time, there's so many good umpires behind the plate that being that bad is unacceptable. And like, you need to either move on if you're not able to perform at a high level, or 2, like drop the ego a little bit and like shorten or like reduce your zone, get back into the actual zone, because you're just going to keep getting embarrassed night in and night out, and you're going to be all over social media. Like there's cold hard facts that you were bad. Like I just don't understand umpires sometimes and like their ego.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you, Zach. I got to run. Thank you so much for taking 20 minutes or so to pop on the show. Same time next week.
Be here.
Sweet. All right, Zach. Thanks for your time, man.
Yep. See you, Jason.
That is Zack Gray. Check him out on X at ZG the Grapevine. He's got a Patreon where he sells his picks, and it's worth it, man. He does a really, really nice job, especially in the world of college basketball. When we come back in 3 minutes, I've got Eric Ebron talking about Chris Ballard and Andrew Luck and the ultimatum that was given to Luck.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Too many ways to listen to not listen. Before we get to that clip of Eric Ebron talking about Chris Ballard, Bill from Houston, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, enjoying it, man. Appreciate you what you're doing and stepping in and filling big shoes. You got it. You got this. Hey, Final Four. Everybody is talking about Arizona, Michigan. I get that. I don't discount Illinois, but to me, and there's always a funny vibe about UConn when they play even. I know they won. They were a number one seed the last time they won, but even the 3 or 4 prior to those under Hurley and then prior to that Calhoun, there's always been this vibe about UConn that people want to underestimate them. They're almost getting on that Duke level where people want to hate them just because they're UConn. And I'd like UConn to win the whole thing, to be perfectly honest.
Okay. My buddy Zach in the last segment, he called it dark magic. And
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And they're such an interesting team because look, they have the best coach of the 4 left. I had Dan on earlier in the show. He was like, do you really want to bet against Dan Hurley? And the answer is absolutely not. And so I just question if they have the dudes to do it, because I do think of the 4 teams left, I do think it's not that they're not talented. I just think that they're less talented than the other 3 teams.
Well, and you know what? Well, when I sit down on tomorrow night, I'm going to be pulling for Illinois. And pulling for Michigan, just because I'm a Midwest guy. I've lived in Indiana my whole life till the last 7 years. So I want to see Michigan play Illinois for the final. Then I don't care who wins. I will be rooting hard for Illinois because I think that's the story. Nobody's talking about Illinois. I guarantee you, nationwide, coast to coast, local or national, nobody's talking about Illinois.
I agree.
Nobody.
And I think they're really good. I think that the two things that they had to do, I think, in order to make a Final Four, they've done so well throughout the whole tournament, and that's offensive rebound. And they've probably played better defense than any of the other 3 teams left. And so, like, when you guard like that and you rebound like that, you always have a chance. Bill, one last thing, and then
Sure.
I'm going to let you go. You mentioned, and this is something that I've never understood, and I've wanted for someone to explain to me why they think this way. Are you an IU fan or a Purdue fan?
I am of one or the other. Probably historically, you would probably say more of an IU fan.
Okay.
But I wasn't. I'm not. would never put the word "die hard" in front of my name.
Okay.
For no matter what it is, but I would say probably. I mean, I watched. I'm old enough to have watched the Bobby Knight win in '76.
Okay.
So I go back that far.
Okay. So
you know.
I grew up in Arkansas, and like I am a Razorback fan through and through, and like I was watching Florida play Iowa in the tournament, and I wanted Florida to lose so bad. And it's a really common thing, especially in college sports, for people to kind of root for their conference. Why do you think that is? It's something I've never understood, because like I've hated all these teams my whole life, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to root for them. I've never understood that.
It's more for me. It's always just been a familiarity by geography. Those are the teams that I grew up. I mean, back even prior to all the cable channels, we would see in the Midwest. You would see a lot of the Big Ten. You would see IU play Michigan State. You'd see the Purdue. I mean, back then, both teams or both schools were on this statewide television network through Farm Bureau. So you could see both Purdue and IU even off the national broadcast, which weren't that many of. So you became familiar with the 70s, 80s, 90s versions of IU and Purdue. And since you mentioned Arkansas, I also watched them play in '77 in the Final Four with Brewer, Delp, and Sidney Moncrief. I'm an old dude, brother.
Oh man, Best Razorback ever. Probably not, but he's
Three Musketeers, buddy.
That's right. Bill, thanks for the call, man.
Take care, brother.
You too. All right. Well, I was going to play that Ebron clip, but we've only got like 2 minutes until our next break. So Chris and I were talking earlier during the show, or off the air, because the real show happens off the air. And you had an interesting conspiracy theory that I would like for you to share if you're cool with that. There it is.
So yeah, this might take some time to explain. But what we were talking about a little bit was the geographical, kind of like what Bill from Houston was just saying. I'm going to piggyback off of that, Bill. And you have teams that are playing in the Final Four geographically smart, I guess you could say, because the Final Four is happening in Indy. So if you look at the map, the Sweet 16, they were talking about on ESPN, all the teams that were left at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only team that wasn't close to Indiana at the time, the two furthest was Arizona and UConn, right? Kind of close to the West Coast, kind of East Coast. Everything else that was left in the tournament was mainly Midwest. What I was thinking of conspiracy-wise is whenever they have these neutral cities hosting championship games, even the Super Bowl, how often do you see teams make that championship game that are closest to that host city? Because fans don't want to travel across the country. I mean, IU might be, the football team might be, exception. The bowl stays in the same place. But, the Final Four moves around. Super Bowl moves around. But if you look at the history, sometimes geographically, it looks like it makes sense for the teams that are pretty close to that host city to make that championship game because it's easier for the fans to travel from there. Does that make sense?
To put it shortly, you think it might be rigged so that teams closer to like the Final Four host site have like an easier path or something like that.
Exactly. And kind of what Bill was saying, Big Ten Network, obviously a big deal in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of Michigan and a lot of Illinois. So even if you don't follow IU or the rest of the Big Ten, you probably know a little bit about Michigan, a little bit about Illinois. So then you're not only pulling in the Michigan fans from up north, the Illinois fans from west, you already have a base in Indiana. I don't know. Do with that what you will.
It's an interesting thought. I have a counterpoint, and I'll give it to you when we come back in about 4 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you are tuning in, whether that's YouTube, X, the app, 1430 AM. There's just, so many ways to listen. There's really no excuse not to. We got Buzzard on the line, and just to kind of give people some context, I made a comment about how I just don't understand people. So for me, I grew up in the South. I am an Arkansas fan, and I will not root for any other SEC team. I want all of them to lose. So Buzzard's going to tell me why here in Indiana that isn't the case. What is it, Buzzard? What's going on?
I think it's just a matter of being Indiana. So I think in Indiana. So I think in the SEC, you guys just hate each other. Is that a fair statement?
I hate them, but even looking at the football season, there's this huge competition of which conference is better, and teams are rooting for their conference. Me personally, I wish Arkansas played in the ACC where everybody's bad. That way they could go 11-1 every year. I think that'd be way more fun. But I don't know.
Well, I think you guys beat up on each other and you end up hating each other, and then that's kind of where you're at. So I think in Indiana, there's such a huge thing between Purdue and Indiana where I love every other Big Ten team to beat up on Indiana as a Purdue fan. I think people like Gritty would say the same thing, speaking for her, but she would love for every Big Ten team to just beat the crap out of Purdue. So I think then when it gets into tournament time, I want everybody but Indiana from the Big Ten to do well because it props up Purdue. It makes the Big Ten look that much better in the tournament. And I think it's a rivalry thing. So I think that's where it's a little bit different, but it might just be an Indiana thing just based on that type of rivalry. It would be interesting to pull Michigan State, Michigan, or, different Ohio State, Michigan. Might be another thing. That would be a good one, but that's my perspective.
That's
so
interesting.
Somebody can come in and argue my point, but
that's the best argument for it that I've heard. I'll concede that. Most people are because I want the conference that I'm in to do well. And I'm yeah, but why is that?
Right. And there is a conference jealousy. I do not like the SEC drives me nuts is because they're just good at everything. So I really like it when if SEC teams, I will root against SEC teams in the tournament just because I just don't want to hear them talk.
Same. Buzzard, takes your time.
There's
man. Go ahead.
The perspective. All right, so there's your perspective. Have a good weekend. See you guys.
You too, Buzzard. See you. Speaking of what Buzzard said there, rooting for the Big Ten, how the SEC is good at everything. That is very quickly changing. And Chris, but before we went to break, you had your conspiracy theory on how you think that teams that are playing close to the host site tend to do better, tend to maybe have easier paths and all those things. And I won't refute the history of it because even just recent history, right? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they played in the Super Bowl the year that they hosted it. Miami, who just hosted the national title game, they played in it, and so on. And you can find other examples of that. For this year, though, on the Final Four, I'm going to dispute it a little bit. I think anytime going forward with how NIL works, I think anytime the host site is in the Midwest, I think it's going to be this way because ultimately the Big Ten has more money than every other conference when you just go per school. And when you have more money than everybody else and you invest in sports the way that the Big Ten does, I think you're always just going to have better teams. So I think this year is really more about Illinois and Michigan just investing their money better than everybody else as opposed to them having an easier path or anything like that.
Totally fair. Yeah, and I can totally see that too, man. I just thought it was a little ironic as somebody that normally didn't follow it as much as a Jonathan Smith or Dan Dakich. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just from the outside looking in, it looked like, oh, well, this is kind of a setup. Isn't it ironic that, all these surrounding states are best eligible to play in a championship in the middle of it all?
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. Even going and the geography thing is always interesting. Like when the Cavaliers won the lottery, when LeBron James was coming out of high school. It's like, oh, you mean the kid from Cleveland is going to play for Cleveland? It's kind of funny, you know? So yeah, I think that there's certainly some validity to it in asking the question, but I do think this year it's more about the teams than anything else. What it sounds like, if you're right, we need for Lucas Oil to host the Super Bowl once again. That's really what we need. Maybe that's what needs to happen in order for the Colts to turn it around a little bit. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen, though. Eric Ebron went on some podcasts. Eric Ebron's, a little out there, and he was talking about this ultimatum that Chris Ballard gave Andrew Luck.
Andrew then decides that he's so tired of, he don't tell nobody this is the backstory. He's so tired of injury, and he just doesn't want to do surgery. You know who the man is around there that gets on everybody's nerves. Big draws over there behind that desk. He tells Andrew, this is word, bro. He tells Andrew, you're either playing this year or we're moving on. Who would tell Andrew Luck that, right?
That's crazy. I didn't
Andrew
know
Luck,
that. That's crazy.
Andrew Luck now says, I'm not going to be ready. I'm tired of playing with pain. I retire.
Oh, man. Eric Ebron, former Colts tight end right there, talking about an ultimatum that Chris Ballard apparently gave to Andrew Luck. And, Dan talked about it for years. Dan Dakich, to be a little more clear, about, how it's just kind of how Ballard was. And look, it's Eric Ebron. Okay. Like, you can't take everything that he says as like a surefire 100% this happened kind of thing, especially when you remember the fact that he doesn't really like Chris Ballard. You could hear it in his tone there. Big draws, who sits behind the desk. Big draws thing. I don't know how he knows that Chris Ballard has big draws. I think that's an interesting thing. But hey, whatever you want to do, I guess.
Who doesn't know that he does? I don't know.
Yeah. Hey man, if good for Ballard, I guess.
He's got to have some big draws if you can bring back Phillip Rivers to play quarterback. I don't know. This is something.
You got to have big draws if you're going to look at Andrew Luck and say, hey, man, here's your ultimatum. You're only one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Jeez Louise. This is just more proof of the ineptness of Chris Ballard and his inability to just, have things make sense. Okay, on Wednesday, I was asked about Jaden Ivey and kind of the whole situation that he has going on right now. And one of the things about Jaden Ivey is the Bulls cut him because he's Jaden Ivey, because he's like the 8th best guy on that roster. And when the 8th best guy, or when a lesser player on your roster is being a bit of a headache, when a lesser player on your roster doesn't want to go have a surgery because they don't want to rehab and they don't want to do all these things. If you want to give that player the ultimatum, go right ahead. Maybe not with your starting quarterback, though, who's going to be your franchise guy, hopefully for another decade when all of this transpired. It's just one of those, it's like a common sense thing. People that are better at their jobs get more leeway. People who are better at more important jobs, like quarterback, get more leeway. And the fact that Chris Ballard, if this is true, because it's possible that Eric Ebron is lying. If this is true, I just feel like this is such a simple concept that an NFL general manager should understand. And I wonder if part of it comes from the arrogance of hearing how great Chris Ballard is. Because there for a minute, man, hot name. Oh man, nobody drafts like Chris Ballard. Best drafter in the NFL. That guy evaluates talent. It's not said about him anymore because the Colts have been bad, for 5 straight years now. And so I wonder if at the time he was just feeling himself a little bit too much. He got too many pats on the back, and that led to a really good quarterback walking out of the NFL before he should have. It's the reality of it. So speaking of, moving back over to the Final Four, the biggest thing happening this weekend. I can't wait for the Final Four. I think everyone is very excited about it. And, I went through it yesterday. I like Arizona to win the whole thing. I like them to beat Michigan. I also like for Illinois to beat UConn. Had some interesting discussions about it today with Dan Dakich and Zack Gray earlier on in the show. And when I was thinking about the games last night, I just was taken back to this memory of, like when I was a kid, there was a summer where my mom, who was mostly a stay-at-home mom, there was one summer though where she had to have a job. My siblings and I, we were old enough to stay home alone. And in order to keep us busy, my mom would give us a chore list of things that we needed to do. And we knew that if we didn't finish that chore list, things were not going to go well for us when she got home. Okay? And so the key to our happiness that summer was making sure that chore list was done. And it was never super long or extensive. It very rarely contained anything crazy on it. It was like pick up the floor, vacuum, do the dishes, those kinds of things. And then occasionally she'd be like, Jonathan, go clean the baseboards. Chris, have you ever had to clean baseboards before?
No.
Yeah. That's the answer I always get when I ask people, hey, man, like, have you ever had to clean the baseboards? The answer was always no. And consider yourself lucky, man. Like, I hated doing it, man. You're down on your hands and knees. You got this dirty rag in your hand. And my mom, calling her a neat freak wouldn't be correct, but her level of clean, like what she says is clean and what I say is clean, are not the same thing. Not the same thing. And so I would be done. She'd be like, Jonathan, you need to go do that again. I'm like, no, I don't.
That doesn't sound fun at all.
It's the baseboards. Anyway. But again, in order just to kind of to keep things going in the right direction, I would do it because no one likes to be yelled at. So these are just, I think, two things for every team in the Final Four, two things that they have to do to give themselves a chance to advance. All right, I want to start with Arizona. And for them, they have to draw fouls and they have to play in transition. A slower game favors Michigan because of how good their half-court offense is. It's arguably the best half-court offense in college basketball from a production standpoint, which is really, the only thing that matters. Arizona, however, I think they have better athletes than Michigan. And so I want to see them get out and run, okay, especially with the guards that they have. Okay, the best guards are great in transition, and that is what Arizona possesses. They have the better guards, the better backcourt in this game. They need to get out and get easy buckets because it is going to be much easier to score at the rim and to convert those layups when, Mara isn't hanging out around the basket. So they've got to get out and they have to run. Okay. But even more important than that, they have to draw fouls and they have to get to the foul line. That is something that they absolutely have to do. Okay. They absolutely have to draw fouls because they don't take many threes. Okay. They're very capable of making them whenever they do attempt them. I mean, look, they've got 3 guys on their roster who shoot 40% or better from 3. They just don't take very many. They beat teams at the rim and at the foul line. And the issue in this game is that Michigan has this guy named Mara, 7'3", third in the country in block shots per game. And to Mara's credit, he has done an excellent job all tournament long of just avoiding fouls. And if Arizona can find a way to get him in foul trouble, I think you will see them pull away from Michigan. We saw Purdue do something pretty similar in that Big Ten championship game. They got Mara in foul trouble. There was a little stretch there where Mara had to sit on the bench. Purdue really kind of had it rolling. Dusty May puts Mara back in despite the foul trouble to kind of hopefully halt the run. Okay? Michigan has to have Mara on the floor in this game in order for them to beat Arizona. Because if he's not on the floor, Arizona is going to get everything that they want at the basket. Okay? And that's really kind of what I expect to happen. I think Arizona is going to get out and run. I think they're going to draw the fouls that they need to take control of the game because it's something that they have done all year. They have such a low level and variability whenever they play. They're the total opposite of a team like Alabama, where with Alabama, when you watch them play, they could score 100 or they could score 70. because three-point shooting fluctuates in a way that getting to the rim and getting to the foul line does not. When your entire game, when the entire way that you want to win is built on defense, rebounding, and getting to the rim, and when you do all three of those things well, you are going to have steady production like Arizona has had all year. It hasn't mattered who Arizona has played all year. They've done it against everyone, and I think that they're going to do it again tomorrow. With that being said, there's a reason why Michigan is favored by 1.5 points in this game in Vegas. Okay, like there's a reason for it. Those people in Vegas, they're very smart to their credit. And Michigan can undoubtedly win this game. Like if Michigan beat Arizona, I wouldn't be surprised at all because Michigan is really, really good at basketball. But in order to do that, there's two things that they absolutely have to do. I'll tell you what those two things are when we come back in 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, YouTube, X, the app, 14:30 a.m. No matter how you tune it in, it is greatly appreciated. John Buzzard chiming in on X over the break, saying that's a heck of a subject. Most hated chores. John's was wiping down our walls from fingerprints and dirt. Second worst was oven cleaning. I've never had to clean an oven. I've never had to wipe down the walls for fingerprints. Chris, you?
No, not that I know of. And Dan talked about it all the time. I was raised with all women. Never cleaned any walls.
That's interesting. Nah, man. The baseboards for me. Whenever we had to, and I always had to do it. Like, they never made my older brother do it. They never made, like, one of my younger siblings do it. It was always me. It was, Jonathan, you're going to clean the baseboards. It's like, oh, well, what about whoever else? And my dad would hit me with the same line he always did. He would say, Jonathan, we're not talking about anybody else. We're talking about you right now. I'm like, okay, Dad. Leave me alone. Man, yeah, cleaning the baseboards, man. It stunk. I hated it so much. Anyway, Michigan's going to hate it so much whenever they lose tomorrow night. And ultimately for them, I think that if they want a chance to beat Arizona, they have to do two things. Okay, there's two things that they absolutely have to do, and that is make threes, and that is defensive rebound. Two things that Michigan is very capable of doing. That's how you beat Arizona. You make threes, and you keep Arizona off the offensive glass. Michigan is capable of doing both of those things at a really high level. That's why they're favored by 1.5 points in the game. Despite everyone else seeming to like Arizona, Michigan's the favorite. And I've talked about this a little bit today. The sack man has taught us when everybody's going one way, you go the other. And so there's part of me that, wants to flip my pick because of that. But ultimately, I'm going to go with what I think, and I'm probably going to ride with Arizona. And when you look at Arizona and Michigan, you'll notice that both teams shoot 36% from three on the year. But Michigan has attempted over 300 more threes. This is an elite shooting team. And it's why they have one of the best half-court offenses in college basketball. And they have to knock down these threes if they want to beat Arizona. Arizona does not have to make threes to win, but Michigan does. And Michigan does an outstanding job of generating open looks. They just have to knock them down in this game. More important than that, though, is keeping Arizona off the offensive glass. Arizona was 10th in the country in offensive rebounds per game this year. And they were 4th in offensive rebound percentage. This is a large part of how they beat teams. It's an area where you really see their physicality show up. Okay, Michigan has to finish possessions with defensive rebounds. And they've done a really good job of it so far this year. They're 3rd in the country in defensive rebounds per game. Arizona, they're 1st, by the way. Anyway, Michigan is 33rd, in defensive rebound percentage. Okay, that has to be a little bit better in order to keep Arizona off the glass. Michigan has more size than Arizona, and if they want to win this game, then it is mandatory for that size to show up on the glass if they're going to find a way to beat a really, really good Arizona team. It would take a lot over the next, 28 hours or so before the Final Four gets going, for my opinion to change that whoever wins this game is going to win the national title. So I hope that this game lives up to the hype that everyone is kind of throwing its way as we get closer and closer to it. The other game, UConn is playing Illinois. And for UConn, the two things that they have to do in order to beat Illinois is they have to contain the basketball and they have to make open shots. UConn has struggled to defend the ball basically all tournament. Like when you go back and you watch the games against Duke, Michigan State, and UCLA, half of the shot attempts for their opponents in those games are coming like right at the rim. And big credit to Terrace Reed Jr., who has been a large part of why those shots at the rim haven't cost them. He's done an excellent job, really, of defending the rim for UConn. There's just two issues in this game against Illinois. One, he's going to have his hands full underneath. And Illinois, he's going to have his hands full underneath because Illinois' got some big dudes who finish well around the basket and those things. But Illinois also plays centers who can step out and knock down a three. Illinois runs a lot of 5 out. A lot of stuff where they don't have anybody standing in the paint. Okay, if you watch the NBA, think Boston Celtics, where there's just no one standing in the lane. And Illinois is going to have the ability to pull Terrace Reed Jr. away from the basket. Now, that ability didn't matter in November when UConn beat Illinois 74-61. But at the same time, both of these teams have changed over the course of the year. And I think Illinois is much improved compared to that game from earlier in the year. And if UConn can't contain the basketball, then Illinois' offense may look like a layup line. They're going to get, I think, just so many easy shots right at the rim if UConn is incapable of getting in a stance and staying in front of them. And if UConn wants to have a chance to win this game, they're going to have to defend the ball better than they have as of late in the NCAA tournament. They also have to make shots. Part of why they got down to Duke is because they shot the ball so poorly. Their offense is beautiful. I don't think there's any other way to describe the motion offense that we see UConn run. Okay, the offense is beautiful. You know that they're going to get good looks. You know that they're going to get good shots. Okay, their offense is just too good not to. It's too crisp. They run it too well. Illinois is going to make their three-point opportunities. That's another team that can really shoot the basketball in this Final Four. And UConn is a team where their three-point shooting has fluctuated a little bit, especially when you compare it to Illinois and Michigan, probably the two best shooting teams left. And if UConn wants to win this game, if they're going to win this game, then they have to make those open looks. When you go back to that Elite Eight game against Duke, part of why they were down by so much at halftime is because Mullins and Caravan, they combined to go like 0 of 5 on wide open threes. If they make 2 of them, then, that game feels very differently going into halftime, right? And it's not an uncommon thing for them to miss those wide open 3-point attempts. So they've got to do a better job of making those wide open shots if they want to have a chance to beat a really good Illinois team that is probably going to have home court advantage in this game because, Illinois really isn't all that far from you. We're 3 hours from Chicago, all that kind of stuff. For Illinois, in order for them to win this game, they're going to have to continue to do what they've done all tournament. Okay, they have offensive rebounded so well throughout the tournament, and they've defended. Like, the way that they've played defense has been so impressive. They're 7th in the country in offensive rebounds per game. And you've seen that production throughout the entirety of the NCAA tournament. Okay, they've had no fewer than 12 offensive rebounds in every tournament game that they have played in so far. Okay, you could make a real argument that they're a better offensive rebounding team than Arizona. Okay, Illinois, again, they're 7th in the country this year in offensive rebounds per game, but they're 3rd in offensive rebound percentage. Okay, this is a major part of their identity, and they're playing against a team in UConn and a center in Terrace Reed who has done an excellent job on the glass. I mean, 27 rebounds against Furman, it's incredible, right? That guy's been a menace underneath all year. Okay, those 27 rebounds against Furman, that's more rebounds total than Iowa had against Illinois in the Elite Eight. Illinois has to keep him off the glass, and they have to maintain that part of their identity that has allowed them to make this really deep run. Defensively, Illinois has been incredible. Penn scored 70 points against them in that first round game. That is the most amount of points they've allowed in a tournament game so far. They held Houston and VCU to 55 points, and they held Iowa to 59 points. And the only reason why Penn scored 70 is because, Illinois themselves, they scored 100, and, they called off the dogs, put in the walk-ons, and, that was it. If Illinois continues to guard how they've defended, throughout the tournament, then they're going to be in great shape whether they play UConn or Michigan or Arizona. When you defend that well and you rebound that well, you always have a chance to win games. Then you throw in the fact that, you got a guy in Keaton Wagler who can go and get you a bucket, and they've got a lot of shooting, and they've got a ton of size. It's a really good team. It's a really good roster. I don't like the idea of betting against Danny Hurley, but I'm going to here because I haven't learned my lesson apparently. So I'm going to take Illinois to beat UConn. I'm taking Arizona to beat Michigan. If you have thoughts on the Final Four, any sort of prediction, who you think is going to win, the number is 317-228-1430. Chris, have I asked you for your picks yet?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit.
Okay.
I was going to say Illinois and Arizona, although I wouldn't mind seeing Michigan take it all.
Okay,
Kind
that's
of
right.
Deep rooting for them.
That's right. You like Michigan. Okay. That's interesting.
If you guys are heading downtown too, be careful. It's packed, as you would imagine already. Free concerts going on, lots of events. A lot of people already lined up for 21 Pilots since even before our show started. So if you're headed downtown, just be ready and patient for traffic and all that comes with it.
And if you want a list of all the free activities and things going on, if you go to indiesportsticket.com, there's a little link there where it says events. You can click on that and it'll show you all the various things going on in Indianapolis over the weekend. And it's going to be so much fun, man. I love when Indianapolis hosts events. They do such a good job of it. There's their ability to just do all of the extra stuff on top of it. Like it's not that the Final Four is here. It's that the Final Four is here, and so were all these extra concerts. It's not just that the NFL Combine is here. It's that there's like the extra fanfare thing going on outside of Lucas Oil, and so on. So Indianapolis, again, just they do an excellent job at hosting these events. Go take advantage of it, right? If you got kids and you want to do something that's free and fun, go watch one of these concerts. And while you're standing in line, Chris and I, we were talking about this earlier off the air. I would like for someone to take a microphone and like a video camera and go walk up and down the line of people waiting for 21 Pilots and just say, hey, who's playing in the Final Four? And just see how many people can name all four of them. Because like this is, we were talking about it. It's like I don't think there's a ton of overlap between 21 Pilot fans and college basketball fans.
Some might surprise you, but I am willing to bet there's a lot of fans down there for concerts that have no idea who's playing when. That's okay.
Yeah, who's
That's
playing and what time? They're like 21 Pilots. I know it's tonight. Post Malone. No. The basketball games. There's basketball games? Yep. There are basketball games happening tomorrow night. That's actually why all of this is happening. And so I don't know. I think it'd be really funny if someone did that. But this is it's a content driven world right now. So if you want to go viral, there's your idea. We will be back here in about 4 minutes. We'll talk about the best players left in the Final Four, and we'll solidify our picks. And again, if you want to call in, let me know who you have winning the Final Four. The number is 317-228-1430.
it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Look, 21 pilots. And Matthew McConaughey. We got them both. Everything you need. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. And no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, over there, subscribe, maybe watch X, or Jonathan Smith, call me there. And watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. Way too many ways to listen and not listen. So, Keith Harr on X chimes in asking the question: are true Indiana basketball fans rooting for or against Michigan and Dusty May? Keith, I think that's a really good question. As someone who's not, I don't know what a true IU basketball fan is. I don't know how you would define that. I would assume that they're rooting for him. Given that, he was, a student manager and all that good stuff at IU. And, it's not like he's a really likable guy as well. I mean, it's not his fault that, the Indiana administration didn't want to hire him before Michigan did as their head coach. Like that's not his fault. So I would argue that I think most Indiana fans would be rooting for Dusty May to do well. So we'll see. Then again, I myself am not an Indiana fan, so I probably couldn't. I'm probably not the best person to ask that question, but there's my 2 cents on it. So, Chris, I said we were going to talk about something, and I completely forgot what it was. You don't even remember? That's fine. It's Friday. It's it's all good. It's all good.
Already came and went, brother.
It's all good. So
it'll come back though.
This is something that I was thinking about last night, and on an episode of something that Jonathan cares about that no one else does. Cade Cunningham and Anthony Edwards are both ineligible for postseason awards in the NBA. So, they can't be named to the All-NBA team. They can't win Defensive Player of the Year. They can't win MVP, anything like that, because of this 65-game rule that a lot of people don't like and people are complaining about. I like the rule. I like the idea of making guys play basketball. It's supposed to help kind of lessen the load management and things. Here's where my issue comes into play. Cade Cunningham and Anthony Edwards are both going to finish the year having played more minutes than Victor Wembanyama, but they will be ineligible for these awards, while Wemby will be eligible for every award, could even win the MVP. And this is one of those things that seems small, and I'm going to sound, maybe even a little ridiculous here, but this wouldn't be a big deal if these awards weren't tied to how much players get paid. So, to be eligible for the Supermax, you got to be named to an All-NBA team, or you have to win MVP or something like that, right, in order to be eligible to make the most amount of money possible. And I just think that it'd be a really nice amendment to the rule if they would allow guys who maybe didn't hit that 65-game mark, but did play over 2,000 minutes on the season, because that's what Cade Cunningham and Anthony Edwards have done. They'll have played more basketball than Wemby did. They just didn't space it out enough in order for them to be eligible. So I was thinking about that the other night. I continue to think about the Final Four and all these things, and I think part of what I look forward to with the Final Four, it's not just the teams. I think that Ian Eagle does an excellent job calling the Final Four. Last year was his first year doing it, taking over for the legendary Jim Nantz, who we're going to hear from in a week when he starts, calling the Masters, because that's, right around the the corner as well. So the Masters is coming up, man. Can't wait for that. Rumor is Tiger Woods is not going to play in the Masters. Don't know if that's if that's been confirmed quite yet.
How come? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. There's a you have to pass a driving test now in order to play.
No, you didn't.
And
that's good.
And for Tiger Woods, he showed up with his golf clubs and he was like, driving test, let's do it. And they were like, no. Go get in that car. And then he didn't pass. Have you seen this Connor Griffin story? Do you know who that is?
No.
He's just another poor soul who's really, really good at baseball, but got drafted by the Pirates. And, he's going to play for an organization for a long time that, doesn't really care about winning. But the interesting thing about Connor Griffin, he is yet to make his Major League Baseball debut. And he has already signed a 9-year, $140 million deal from the Pirates. And these deals are fully guaranteed. So he could suck. He could bat zero for the next 9 years.
Time to retire already.
And they got to pay him.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. And this is why the Pirates are the Pirates. They, that it's really weird. Well, no, it does make sense. I was going to say it's really weird for a team that doesn't care about winning to go ahead and commit this much money to, probably like young 20-year-old who's yet to even, play a single pitch of Major League Baseball. But then again, they don't care. So why not do it? It's going to get people to the ballpark because, the Pirates only care about the bottom line. It's very similar to Cincinnati. And it's just,
You mentioned you play baseball, right? If somebody walked up to you and gave you that kind of money, what would your personal reaction to that be? Would you take it easy or would you, try really hard? Honestly.
That's an interesting question. Because you see it happen all the time, not even just like in baseball, but even in, other sports as well, where guys get paid and then they're just like, cool. Like, we were talking about DeAndre Ayton yesterday and his, self-proclaimed nickname, Dominatin', which is just anyway. He's got my favorite, he's got what I think is the most honest quote maybe in the history of sports. He gets drafted number 1 overall. He goes, and someone asks him, they go, hey, man, what is your goal as an NBA player? What is something that you want to accomplish? And he looks at the reporter. And most guys, when they get asked that question, they say, I want to win a championship. Or,
sure.
I want to win MVP or whatever it is. That is not what DeAndre Ayton said. DeAndre Ayton said, I want to get a second contract.
Greedy.
That was it, man.
Greedy.
And to his credit, he did. He got paid, the Suns paid him a lot of money.
Wow.
And, regretted it ultimately, traded him to Portland, did all those things. But that's the most honest thing. But for me, I don't know. I think I'm the kind of guy who just doesn't like to be bad at things. And so I think that would trump whatever content feeling I had of knowing I was going to make $140 million over the next 9 years.
Fair enough.
What about you? Like if someone offered you that much money to do radio, which would be nuts.
Oh, no. It depends. I guess it would depend on what you're passionate about. I'm passionate about radio, so of course I'm going to give my 110. But if it was something that may end the way I walk the rest of my life or, potential concussions or whatever have you in sports, I may back off a little bit if there's already guaranteed money there, but not because I don't want to try.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to enjoy the bags that they're sending me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Nope. That's the nice thing about baseball. That's the night, you talk about concussions and things. Because, look, there's plenty of football players. They play in the NFL, and then they get concussions. And like you said, their life is shortened and all that kind of stuff. Whereas baseball, you play till you're 36. If you're really good, you make a ton of money. I'm talking about 9 years, $140 million. There aren't guys out there that have signed $400 million contracts. And then you got guys like Shohei Ohtani who have deferred the payments. And so, they're going to get paid out until they're 60. They're going to make $2 million every year until they're 65 or whatever. And so, look, man, if there's any sport, if you can be great at any sport, I think baseball's the one for that reason.
Fair enough.
Because football, even if you play quarterback, like the position that's not supposed to get hit that much, especially now, because everyone has to be able to run and move, like you still get popped.
Yeah. I was thinking about that kind of yesterday with the whole Kirk Cousins situation. Dude already has more than enough money than he knows what to do with.
Yeah.
Is getting more as he goes. At this point in your career, do you just say, like, okay, I've proven my point. You're going to pay me, so I'm just going to do the bare minimum and get by?
For him, I'm really interested to see, because the Kirk Cousins deal is really interesting because they have the number 1 overall pick, and you don't pay a guy 5 years, $174 million. I think was the number. You don't pay a guy that much to be a backup, which the 5-year number is crazy. Maybe it wasn't 5 years. I'm actually going to double check that real quick because I want to make sure that.
It was some very specific things that went along with it, but I think it was 5 years, 172. But just the first 2 years were like guaranteed or something like that.
Okay, yeah. I got it right here. So Kirk Cousins, 5-year, $172 million deal with the Raiders. That in reality is a 1-year, fully guaranteed $20 million deal. That makes so much more sense. That also contains a club option for 2 years at $80 million. Okay, so if Fernando Mendoza shows up, doesn't work out, they can bring Kirk Cousins back for 2 more years. Okay, and pay him $40 million a season, which is nuts.
That's Daniel Jones money, pretty much, right? Is
that
the same amount
that he got last year? Yes.
Okay.
That he got. Yeah. Now it's 50, which is up to 50. Let me be honest here. Up to 50, and it's an interesting thing because Fernando Mendoza, he's going number 1. Like the Raiders are taking him with the number 1 overall pick when the NFL draft happens, which is like 3 weeks away, which is kind of nuts. And so I guess they're going to have some sort of quarterback competition. Maybe I think that the days of like drafting a guy number 1 overall and then sitting him, I think those days are gone. Even look, the Colts drafted the most he needs to sit for a long period of time guy ever in Anthony Richardson, and they started him week 1. And for some guys, that works really well. I think Fernando Mendoza is incredibly smart. I mean, look, the dude went to Berkeley. Like, he's going to show up, and I know there's some concern about Mendoza because when you look at just the kind of offense that IU ran, it's a lot of read option and those things, and teams don't run RPOs in the NFL. Like that's not what they do. And so, how's all that going to kind of translate? He seems so committed and so smart that I think he's going to be fine. So I do think he'll start week 1, but again, you don't give that kind of a contract to a guy in Kirk Cousins unless you think there's a chance that he's going to play.
I feel that as well. I think he's going to fill a good mentor role for Mendoza as well, and I think that's part of the reason why they brought that veteran in, paid him a little extra, and say, hey, you're towards the backstretch of your career. We're going to need you to kind of form Fernando as well while you're here if you want to make some money.
Seems like, I don't know, have you watched Quarterback on Netflix? Do you know what that is?
No, I've heard of it.
So they basically take like 5 quarterbacks every year, it may be 3, and they follow them around all year with a camera. And Kirk Cousins seems like the perfect mentor quarterback. Like, really good, smart. He had a really good year last year when he came in and replaced Michael Penix. So he's a guy who knows what he's doing. Like you said, he's going to be able to, help out, Fernando Mendoza a little bit in terms of knowing what to do in those things. And he's not distracting either. Like, Cam Newton can never be a backup quarterback. His personality is just too big. Same goes for Tim Tebow. Okay, like Urban Meyer brought him in Jacksonville, and things went terrible really quickly. So like Tim Tebow was there for like a month, and then they're like, you know what, Tim, you need to go home. You're just you're just a little bit too distracting. So, I mean, he's the perfect guy to have back up a guy like Fernando Mendoza. I think their personalities are really similar as well. I think that helps. By the way, that prospect, Connor Griffin, who signed that 9-year, $140 million deal before even playing a game, in the major leagues. He is set to debut today at like 4:15 when the Orioles go to Pittsburgh to play against the Pirates. So, there's always the Major League Baseball prospect stuff really bothers me because anytime there's a guy who's like the number one ranked prospect, everyone's like, oh, this guy's the next Mike Trout. This guy's the next Albert Pujols. This guy's the next, fill in the blank with, whichever guy you want to go with. And they never are. They never are. So so Connor Griffin, as far as I'm concerned, he's terrible, and he will remain terrible in my sight until he proves me wrong.
That bad, huh?
I just find it annoying. Like I don't feel this way about Fernando Mendoza because I've seen him play a little bit more, but the people who think he's just going to be awesome immediately, I have a really hard time buying into, because playing professional sports is incredibly hard. And like the gap between Division I college football and the NFL is huge. The gap between the NBA and Division I college basketball is huge. The gap between AAA and Major League Baseball is huge. Like I don't think people realize that. So I'm just always going to be hesitant when people crown guys, unless it's basketball. Because actually in basketball, you can tell a little bit easier. Like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that Wemby's going to be really good.
Touche.
And that LeBron's going to be really good.
Well said.
And so it just kind of depends. But all right, on that note, we will end the show today. Go find a church to go to and then keep going. That, if you want life advice for Jonathan, that is what I would do. So that's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks to Dan Dakich for coming on earlier. Thanks to Zack Gray. Thanks to Chris for running the board, being an awesome producer. Next week, we got the Masters start. We got the national title game Monday. We got the Final Four Saturday. We're going to break it all down right here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show all week next week. I will talk to you on Monday starting at noon. See ya.